Spock knew his time in the Star Trek universe was coming to a close, and one heartbreaking moment proves he predicted it. After a distinguished career in Starfleet and as an ambassador, Spock found himself hurled into an alternate universe where his story eventually came to an end. In Star Trek, Defiant -21, Spock is seemingly aware of how he will die, making a prediction that will sadly come true. Star Trek, Defiant -21 is written by Christopher Campbell and drawn by Angel Unzueta. Spock has just helped Worf and the crew of the Defiant turn back a Romulan invasion of an agrarian world. As the dust settles, Spock reflects on the incident and his life as a whole. Spock muses that we burn on, in a constant state of flux, even if we perceive it as static. Spock's philosophical train ultimately arrives at its destination, that we all die alone. Before Spock can think any further, Worf breaks up his train of thought. While Spock was contemplating life in general, it is easy to see, in his assertion that people die alone, that he was predicting his own death. In the late 24th century, the Romulan Empire was threatened by a supernova in its home star system, and Spock, who had devoted his life to Romulan/Vulcan reunification, agreed to help. As seen in 2009's Star Trek, Spock's efforts were for naught, and Romulus was destroyed. Furthermore, thanks to the technology Spock used, he was sent back in time, helping create the Kelvin universe. The Kelvin universe would turn out to be Spock's final resting place. After helping the Kelvin Enterprise on at least 2 occasions, Spock passed away, as seen in 2016's Star Trek Beyond. While the film did not reveal how Spock died, Star Trek Discovery explained in its 3rd season that travel between universes can be a dicey proposition, one with potentially deadly consequences for the health of those who do. If this law holds, then not only did Spock die alone, he most likely died in great pain. IDW Star Trek comics are set before Spock's exile to the Kelvin universe began, and the creative teams behind those books have given insight into Spock's mindset shortly before the Romulan supernova. Spock is still working to reunite the Vulcans and the Romulans, work that gets sidetracked by the God War. After its conclusion, Spock continues to serve alongside Worf on the Defiant, which brings him deep into a plan for a Romulan coup, documented in the book's most recent storyline, The Stars of Home. During the course of events, he learns of the impending supernova. The events of The Stars of Home have set into motion a chain of events that will culminate with Spock's exile and death. And Star Trek, Defiant -21 implies he knew this ahead of time. Serving in Starfleet brings many risks, including the possibility of death, as well as potentially dying alone. Spock, with half a century of Starfleet experience, knows and understands these risks. Spock knows he cheated death once before, but also understands that it was a one-time deal. With most of his friends from the Enterprise dead, Spock's mind is dwelling heavily on mortality. Spock's death in Star Trek Beyond was heartbreaking. Spock tried to save the Romulans but failed, and for his troubles was permanently sent to an alternate universe. Yet even in a different universe, Spock's commitment to justice and fairness never wavered, even if he witnessed the destruction of his homeworld. Spock was no doubt in pain the whole time, but pressed on to help his younger counterpart and the now homeless Vulcans. Spock walked a solitary path in the last years of his life, and he was seemingly aware of this, but still went to his death with honor.